I'm sitting at my kitchen table staring at my phone after receiving a voicemail from my father screaming that I've destroyed the family. The inheritance check for $250,000 lies torn on the floor, where my brother Derek threw it 3 hours earlier during our confrontation. My hands shake as I realize my entire family has turned against me overnight. The woman I thought I'd marry has blocked my number. My parents have changed their locks, all because my late grandmother Margaret chose to leave everything to me instead of Derek. 2 weeks ago, my life was simple. I taught American history at Lincoln High School in Portland, Oregon, lived in a cramped studio apartment above a coffee shop, and spent most evenings grading papers or planning lessons. The phone call from Attorney Harrison came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was explaining the Revolutionary War to 30 bored sophomores. "Mr. Walter Thompson," the voice said when I answered during lunch break. "I need to discuss your grandmother Margaret's estate. Could you come to my office tomorrow?" My stomach dropped. Grandma Margaret had passed 3 months earlier after a brief illness, and I'd assumed her modest estate would be handled quietly. She'd never seemed wealthy, living in the same small ranch house in suburban Portland for 40 years, driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic, shopping with coupons at the grocery store. Attorney Harrison's office downtown felt intimidating with its mahogany furniture and wall of law books. He was a thin man in his 60s who spoke carefully, as if each word cost money. "Your grandmother was very specific about her wishes." He began sliding papers across his desk. "She left her entire estate to you. The house, her savings accounts, her investment portfolio. Everything totals approximately $250,000. I stared at the documents, unable to process the numbers. There must be some mistake. What about Derek? He's her other grandchild. She was very clear. Derek receives nothing. Margaret left a note explaining her decision, but I'm not required to share that unless the will is contested." Attorney Harrison adjusted his glasses. "She spoke highly of your character, Mr. Thompson. Said you were the only one who visited regularly, who cared about her stories, who helped with her groceries and house repairs." The memories flooded back. Every Sunday for the past 5 years, I'd driven to Margaret's house. We'd sit on her back porch drinking iced tea while she told stories about my grandfather's struggles, building his small accounting business from nothing. She taught me woodworking in her garage, showing me how to sand and stain the furniture my grandfather had crafted decades earlier. "Your grandfather believed in hard work and good character," she'd say, running her weathered hands over a dining table he'd built in 1952. "Money means nothing if you don't earn it honestly." Derek rarely visited. Maybe Christmas, maybe Easter if his wife Sarah insisted. He'd stay for an hour checking his phone, making excuses about soccer practice for his twin daughters or business meetings he couldn't miss. When Margaret tried to share family stories, Derek would glance at his watch and mutter about traffic. I called Derek that evening, still stunned by the inheritance. His construction company had been successful lately, and he'd just moved his family into a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. The twins, Emma and Sophie, were 8 years old and attended private school. "Walter, that's incredible." Derek sounded genuinely happy. "Grandma always loved you best. This is perfect timing, too. Sarah's been talking about redoing the kitchen, and the girls want to join the competitive dance team this fall. We met for dinner at his favorite steakhouse where Derek ordered the most expensive bottle of wine and insisted on celebrating. He seemed relaxed, even proud of his younger brother's good fortune. "What are your plans?" Derek asked, cutting into his ribeye. "You could finally buy a real place, maybe start dating someone seriously." "Probably pay off my student loans first," I said. "Then maybe a small house, nothing fancy. I want to save most of it, maybe start a family someday." Derek nodded enthusiastically. "Smart thinking. Building wealth takes patience." He raised his wine glass. "To Grandma Margaret and her wisdom." The first hint of trouble came a week later. Derek started calling with casual questions about my plans. Had I talked to a financial advisor? Was I considering investment properties? did I realize how much money $250,000 really was for a single guy with no responsibilities. Just thinking out loud, he'd say when I asked why he was so interested. Want to make sure you make good decisions. Then the comments about his own situation started creeping in. The mortgage on the new house was substantial. Sarah's tastes had grown expensive since his business started succeeding. Private school tuition for twins cost more than he'd anticipated. The girls needed new instruments for orchestra, new equipment for dance class, clothes that fit their growing bodies. It's crazy how fast money disappears when you have a family, Derek mentioned during one of our phone calls. Sometimes I wonder how different things would be if I'd inherited something substantial when I was younger, before all these obligations. I offered to help with small amounts. Maybe I could cover the girls' dance fees for a few months or contribute to their college funds. Derek seemed grateful, but I noticed he always steered the conversation back to the total inheritance amount. 3 days ago, Derek showed up at my apartment unannounced. Sarah was with him, which surprised me. She rarely came to my neighborhood, usually claiming it was too far from their side of town. "Walter, we need to talk," Derek said, his voice more serious than I'd ever heard. "About Grandma Margaret's will." They sat on my small couch while I perched on the kitchen chair, sensing tension I couldn't identify. Derek pulled out papers from a folder he'd brought. "Sarah and I hired someone to look into Margaret's mental state during her final months," Derek began. "We discovered she was diagnosed with early-stage dementia 6 months before she wrote that will." My blood ran cold. "What are you suggesting?" Sarah leaned forward, her eyes filled with tears. "Walter, we think she was confused. Dementia affects decision-making. She might have forgotten about Derek's family, about his daughter's futures." "That's impossible," I said. "Margaret was sharp until the end. We talked every week about current events, family history, her finances. She managed her own banking, drove herself to appointments." Derek shook his head. "Dementia patients often maintain certain abilities while losing others. The investigator found medical records showing she'd been asking the same questions repeatedly during doctor visits. Her neighbors mentioned she seemed confused about dates and times. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. They were suggesting I'd manipulated a vulnerable elderly woman for financial gain. The grandmother who'd raised me during summers when my parents divorced, who'd taught me everything I knew about integrity and hard work. Derek, this is Margaret we're talking about," I said, my voice shaking. "She loved us both. But she made her choice based on years of knowing us, watching our behavior, seeing who cared about her as a person versus who saw her as an obligation." Sarah began crying harder. "Walter, Derek has so many responsibilities. The girls need stability, education, opportunities. You're single with no dependents. Grandma Margaret would want her money to help her great-granddaughters." Derek's expression hardened. "Do the right thing here, Walter. Split this 50-50. It's what a decent person would do." The phone calls started the next morning. First Mom, then Dad, then Uncle Tom. Each conversation followed the same pattern: disappointment in my selfishness lectures about family responsibility, and barely concealed anger that I was keeping money Derek's daughters desperately needed. "Your grandmother would be heartbroken," Mom said during a particularly brutal conversation. "She adored Emma and Sophie. How can you look at yourself knowing you're taking opportunities away from 2 little girls?" Dad was more direct. "Derek has a mortgage, Walter. 4 people depending on him. You rent a studio apartment and eat ramen noodles. Use some common sense here." The family dynamics I'd never fully understood suddenly became crystal clear. Derek had always been the golden child, the successful businessman, the one who'd provided the first grandchildren. I was the dreamy younger brother who chose teaching over profit, who lived modestly by choice rather than necessity. Uncle Tom called on Thursday evening, and his betrayal hurt most of all. As Margaret's son, I'd expected him to defend her final wishes. "Walter, your grandmother wasn't thinking clearly those last months," he said. I visited her regularly, and she repeated stories constantly. She'd forget our conversations within days. Derek's family was struggling with medical bills for Sarah's surgery. Margaret would want to help them. "What medical bills?" I asked. "Sarah looks perfectly healthy." Uncle Tom paused. "Minor procedure last spring, but expensive with their insurance plan." I suspected he was lying, but Uncle Tom continued building his case. The family had always worried about Margaret's favoritism toward me. She'd given me more attention during childhood visits, shared family history, and heirlooms, made me feel special in ways that weren't fair to Derek. "I'll think about Christmas mornings," Uncle Tom said. "Margaret always had bigger gifts for you, spent more time talking to you," ignored Derek's attempts to connect. "We all noticed, but nobody wanted to hurt your feelings." These conversations planted seeds of doubt I didn't want to acknowledge. Had Margaret's affection for me created blindness to Derek's needs? Was I benefiting from childhood favoritism rather than adult merit? The family group chat I'd never been added to was revealed when Dad accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for Derek. 3 weeks of messages dissecting my character, my motivations, my selfishness, in keeping money that could transform Derek's daughters' lives. Derek. "Walter's always been self-centered. Remember when he refused to share his college fund money when I needed a car? Sarah, those girls deserve better than public school. Private education opens doors." Mom, Margaret was clearly declining mentally. Walter took advantage of her confusion. Dad, $250,000 could pay off their mortgage completely. Uncle Tom, Walter's living comfortably on teacher salary. He doesn't need this windfall. Each message was a knife twist, revealing how my family truly viewed me. Not as a devoted grandson who'd honored an elderly woman's loneliness, but as a manipulative opportunist who'd exploited vulnerability for personal gain. Derek's tactics escalated daily. He brought financial statements showing his mortgage balance, credit card debt, the girls' school tuition invoices. He'd arrive at my apartment with Emma and Sophie, letting them excitedly describe dance competitions they might miss if Daddy couldn't afford registration fees. Uncle Walter could help us go to nationals. 8-year-old Emma said innocently, having no idea she was being used as emotional leverage. "Daddy says you got money from great-grandma Margaret." Sarah's performance as became increasingly dramatic. She'd call crying about potentially losing their house, about the girls' disappointment when they couldn't join classmates on school trips, about Derek working 18-hour days, trying to keep up with expenses. My girlfriend Emma, who I'd been dating for 8 months and thought I might marry, initially supported my position. But the family pressure campaign gradually wore down her resolve. "Maybe you should consider Derek's perspective," she suggested one evening over dinner. "You could give him half and still have a substantial amount left. It might preserve family relationships." "Emma, this isn't about money," I tried to explain. "It's about honoring Margaret's explicit wishes, about my family's willingness to manipulate and pressure me instead of accepting her decision." But Emma's support continued wavering. She'd grown up in a family where money decisions were made collectively, where individual inheritance was automatically shared. My resistance to family pressure seemed stubborn and selfish to her. Derek arranged a meeting at his house, supposedly to discuss compromise options. I arrived to find not just Derek and Sarah, but Mom, Dad, Uncle Tom, and even Sarah's sister Jessica, who barely knew me. "Walter, we're concerned about your perspective on this situation," Mom began. "You seem to think Margaret's will represents some kind of judgment on Derek's character, but illness affected her thinking." The room felt like a courtroom where I was the defendant. Derek presented financial documents again, emphasizing his debt, his family's needs, the girl's future. Sarah cried on cue. Uncle Tom shared invented stories about Margaret's confusion during their visits. "She asked me the same questions every time I visited." He lied smoothly. "Couldn't remember conversations we'd had the week before. The dementia was obvious to anyone paying attention." Dad delivered the ultimatum with military precision. "Walter, you have 2 choices. Share this inheritance fairly with Derek, or face the consequences of your selfishness. We won't enable your greed by pretending it's acceptable. What consequences? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. You'll find out how lonely life becomes when family stops tolerating your behavior, Mom said coldly. I walked out of that meeting understanding that my refusal to give Derek half the inheritance would cost me every important relationship in my life. But surrendering to their manipulation would cost me something worse, my integrity, and my respect for Margaret's memory. That night, I discovered Derek hadn't been honest about his financial situation. Public records showed his construction company had received 3 major commercial contracts worth over $500,000 in the past year. His business was thriving, not struggling. Property records revealed Derek and Sarah had purchased the 4-bedroom house with a substantial down payment just 6 months ago. Their mortgage was manageable, not burdensome. Sarah's social media posts showed a Hawaiian vacation from February, expensive dinners, new jewelry shopping trips for designer clothes. Most shocking was the boat. Derek had purchased an $80,000 yacht in March, just weeks before approaching me about the inheritance. The marina registration was public record, impossible to deny. My brother wasn't a struggling family man desperate to provide for his daughters. He was a successful businessman who wanted my inheritance to further elevate his already comfortable lifestyle. I confronted Derek with the financial evidence on Friday afternoon, meeting him at his construction site office where workers couldn't overhear our conversation. I laid out printouts of property records, business contracts, boat registration, and Sarah's social media posts documenting their expensive lifestyle. Care to explain why you're claiming poverty while buying luxury boats? I asked, watching his face cycle through surprise, anger, and calculation. Derek's mask slipped completely. You had me investigated what kind of sick person spies on their own family. The kind who doesn't appreciate being lied to and manipulated, I replied. Your company landed 3 major contracts this year worth over $500,000. You bought an $80,000 boat 3 months ago. Sarah's Instagram shows designer purses and vacation photos. Where exactly is this desperate financial struggle? Derek stood up, his 6-foot frame towering over my smaller build. You don't understand the pressures I'm under, Walter. Business expenses, taxes, maintaining this lifestyle. The girls expect certain things. So this is about maintaining appearances, not survival. Everything isn't black and white, Derek snapped. I have obligations you can't comprehend. Sarah's family expects us to live well. The girls' friends all have wealthy parents. We need that inheritance money to secure our position. His honesty was refreshing and disgusting simultaneously. Derek wasn't struggling. He was greedy. He wanted my inheritance to fund continued extravagance rather than meet basic needs. Margaret made her choice, Derek. She knew both of us watched our behavior for decades and decided I would use her money responsibly. Maybe she was wiser than we gave her credit for. Derek's expression turned dangerous. You'll regret this decision, Walter. I promise you that. Family means everything, and you're choosing money over relationships. That kind of selfishness comes with consequences. I left his office understanding that Derek would escalate his campaign beyond emotional manipulation. He'd mentioned during our confrontation that Sarah didn't know about his boat purchase or their actual financial situation. His desperation to get my inheritance wasn't about family need. It was about covering up his secret spending from his own wife. That evening, Emma delivered the crushing blow. She called instead of visiting, which should have warned me about what was coming. Walter, I've been thinking about this inheritance situation, she began carefully. I've talked to Sarah a few times this week, and I think you should seriously consider giving Derek the money. My stomach dropped. You've been talking to Sarah about what? She's so worried about the girls' futures. They might have to change schools, give up activities they love. I can't imagine how stressful that must be for a mother. Emma, Derek's been lying about their financial situation. I have proof they're not struggling. Maybe the appearance of success is misleading, Emma suggested. Maybe they're living beyond their means to maintain face, but genuinely can't afford it long term. I realized Emma had been reporting our conversations to Derek's family, sharing my emotional struggles and plans. Her questions about my feelings, my doubts, my timeline for decisions hadn't been supportive girlfriend concerns. They'd been intelligence gathering for the enemy. "How long have you been feeding them information about me?" I asked. Emma's silence confirmed my suspicion. "Walter, they're your family. They care about you. Sometimes outside perspective helps people make better decisions. And you decided I needed management rather than support. I decided your family's peace was more important than your pride." I hung up and immediately booked a flight to Chicago. My college roommate Marcus had moved there after graduation and repeatedly invited me to visit. I needed distance from Portland, time to think without constant family pressure and manipulation. The flight was for Sunday morning. Saturday night, Derek called a family meeting at my parents' house demanding I attend before making any major decisions. I shouldn't have gone, but some part of me hoped for reconciliation, for acknowledgement that their behavior had been wrong. I walked into my childhood home to find everyone assembled in the living room like a tribunal. Derek and Sarah on the couch, Mom and Dad in their recliners, Uncle Tom standing by the window. The setup was clearly planned to maximize intimidation. "Walter, sit down," Dad commanded, pointing to a single chair they'd placed facing everyone else. "We need to resolve this tonight." Sarah immediately began crying a performance she'd clearly rehearsed. "Walter, I'm begging you to consider Emma and Sophie's futures. They're just little girls who need stability and opportunities. Your grandmother loved them so much. She visited them twice a year," I said. "She spent time with me every week." Derek leaned forward aggressively. "Margaret was confused, Walter. In her right mind, she would never have chosen favorites among her grandchildren. She would want both families provided for." Uncle Tom stepped closer, using his height to loom over my chair. "Walter, Margaret called me confused and frightened during her final weeks. She worried about making mistakes, about forgetting important things. The will was written during a period of mental decline. These were outright lies. Margaret's mind had been clear until her final hospital stay. She'd discussed her will with me just a month before her death, explaining her reasoning and expressing confidence in her choice. Margaret told me exactly why she made this decision," I said. "She wanted her money to go to someone who would honor her values, not waste it on status symbols and appearances." Derek's face reddened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means she knew about your priorities, Derek. She watched you for 35 years. She saw who visited regularly and who showed up for mandatory holidays." Mom's voice was ice cold. "Walter, you have tonight to make the right choice. Transfer half that inheritance to Derek or face the consequences of your greed." "What consequences?" Dad answered with military precision. "You'll discover what life is like without family support. No holiday invitations, no birthday celebrations, no wedding attendance, no help during emergencies. You'll be alone, Walter, because that's what selfish people deserve." The threat was clear: choose Derek's financial comfort over my own principles, or lose every important relationship in my life. But the choice revealed something crucial about my family's values. They would abandon me for refusing to hand over money to someone who was already wealthy. "I need time to think," I said, standing to leave. Derek grabbed my arm roughly. "No more time, Walter. Decide right now." I pulled away from his grip. "Don't touch me, Derek. Give me that inheritance check and we can all move forward as a family." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the check Attorney Harrison had given me that afternoon. Derek's eyes locked onto it with undisguised hunger. Sarah stopped crying to stare. The entire room focused on that piece of paper like it was the Holy Grail. "You want this check, Derek?" I asked, holding it up. "Just hand it over, Walter. Do the right thing." I looked around the room at faces I'd loved my entire life, now twisted with greed and manipulation. These people were willing to destroy family relationships for money, to lie and pressure and threaten until they got what they wanted. Derek lunged for the check, grabbing it with both hands. I held on, and the paper tore down the middle. Derek stared at the destroyed check in shock while I pocketed my half. "There," I said. "Now neither of us has it." Derek exploded. "You destroyed $250,000? Are you completely insane?" "It's just paper, Derek. The money is in the bank, not tied to this specific check." Uncle Tom grabbed my shirt collar. "Walter, you're making a terrible mistake. Family is forever, but money is just money." Then why are you all willing to destroy family relationships for money?" I walked toward the door while my family shouted accusations and threats behind me. Derek followed, screaming about lawyers and court challenges and proving Margaret's mental incompetence. Sarah wailed about her daughter's futures. Mom and Dad promised I'd regret my selfishness for the rest of my life. At the airport the next morning, my phone exploded with messages. The family had escalated their campaign overnight, moving from manipulation to open warfare. Text messages flooded my phone as I waited in the departure lounge at Portland International Airport. Mom's progression from disappointment to fury was documented in real time. "Walter, reconsider this destructive path. Your family needs unity, not division." Derek is beside himself with worry about Emma and Sophie's futures. "How can you be so cruel to two innocent little girls?" "Transfer that money to Derek immediately, or don't bother coming home ever again." Dad's voicemail was pure rage. His voice shook with anger as he accused me of selfishness, manipulation, and betrayal of family values. He called me ungrateful for everything the family had provided during my childhood, accused me of taking advantage of Margaret's mental decline, and promised that my decision would haunt me forever. "You've shown your true character, Walter." Dad's voice cracked with fury. "Your grandmother would be ashamed of what you've become. Don't expect any support from this family until you make this right." The flight to Chicago gave me 3 hours to process the complete destruction of my family relationships. I'd lost parents, brother, sister-in-law, nieces, and uncle in one weekend. Even Emma had chosen their side over mine, betraying my trust to support their narrative. Marcus met me at O'Hare Airport looking concerned. We'd maintained friendship since college, despite geographical distance, and I'd confided my inheritance struggles during our recent phone calls. "You look like hell," Marcus said, grabbing my suitcase. "Family still pressuring you?" "They've disowned me," I said numbly. "Literally told me not to come home unless I give Derek the money." Marcus was a corporate attorney who understood family financial disputes professionally. During the drive to his downtown apartment, I explained the escalation, Derek's lies about his financial situation, and the family's coordinated manipulation campaign. "Walter, this sounds like financial abuse," Marcus said. "Your family is using emotional manipulation, threats, and isolation to coerce you into surrendering legally inherited assets. That's not normal family conflict." At Marcus's apartment, I conducted deeper research into Derek's situation. Public business records revealed his construction company had been extremely successful for the past 3 years. The recent contracts I'd discovered were just the tip of the iceberg. Derek's company, Thompson Construction LLC, had completed 12 major projects since 2021, worth over $2 million total. His business credit rating was excellent, with no outstanding debts to suppliers or contractors. The company owned 3 vehicles, maintained insurance coverage, and employed 8 full-time workers with benefits. Property records showed Derek and Sarah had purchased their house for $450,000 with a $100,000 down payment. Their monthly mortgage was $2,300, easily manageable on Derek's income. The house was in an exclusive subdivision where neighbors included doctors, lawyers, and business executives. Most revealing were Sarah's social media posts from the past year. She documented expensive dinners at Portland's finest restaurants, weekend trips to wine country shopping expeditions that included designer clothing and luxury accessories. The Hawaii vacation had cost at least $10,000 based on the resort she'd tagged and activities she'd photographed. The boat purchase was the smoking gun. $80,000 for a 32-foot yacht with full electronic sleeping quarters and fishing equipment. Derek had financed it through the marina with a 10-year loan requiring monthly payments of nearly $900. My brother wasn't struggling financially. He was living an upper-middle-class lifestyle and wanted my inheritance to fund further luxury purchases. His desperation to get Margaret's money wasn't about family need. It was about greed. Emma called while I was reviewing financial documents, her voice carefully controlled. "Walter, where are you? Derek says you left town without telling anyone." "I'm visiting Marcus in Chicago. I needed space to think without constant family pressure." "Running away isn't going to solve anything," Emma said. "Your family is worried sick about you." "My family threatened to disown me unless I surrender my inheritance. That doesn't sound like worry." Emma sighed dramatically. "They're frustrated because you're being unreasonable. Derek has 2 daughters to support Walter. You're single with no dependents. How is keeping all that money fair?" Derek's construction company made over $500,000 this year. He bought an $80,000 boat 3 months ago. He's not struggling financially. Maybe he's worried about future security, about providing for the girls' college education. I realized Emma was reading from notes. Her responses were too prepared, too aligned with Derek's talking points. She'd become his spokesperson, repeating rehearsed arguments instead of forming independent opinions. "How long have you been reporting my conversations to Derek?" I asked directly. "Walter, that's paranoid. I care about your family relationships." "Answer the question, how long?" Emma's pause revealed the truth. "Sometimes I mention things to Sarah when she asks how you're doing." "She's concerned about you, Walter. They all are." "What exactly have you told them?" "Just general things. Your emotional state, whether you're reconsidering what your timeline might be for making decisions." The betrayal was complete. Emma had been feeding Derek's family information about my doubts, my feelings, my plans. Every vulnerable conversation we'd shared had been reported back to people using it against me. "Emma, we're done," I said. "Don't contact me again." "Walter, you're making terrible decisions based on pride and stubbornness. Your family loves you." I hung up and blocked her number. Within an hour, she'd found alternative ways to contact me through social media and email, sending increasingly desperate messages about my emotional state and need for family reconciliation. That afternoon, Marcus helped me research Derek's background more thoroughly. What we discovered was shocking. Derek had significant gambling debts to dangerous people. Court records revealed 3 civil lawsuits from the past 2 years involving unpaid debts to private lenders. The amounts weren't specified, but the cases had been settled out of court, suggesting Derek had paid to avoid public disclosure. One lawsuit was particularly concerning. A man named Vincent Torino had sued Derek for breach of agreement regarding personal services. The language was deliberately vague, but Torino's background check revealed connections to organized crime in Portland. Derek wasn't just gambling casually. He was involved with dangerous people. Marcus found additional evidence through his legal database access. Derek had borrowed against his business assets twice in the past year using company equipment as collateral for personal loans. He'd maxed out credit cards, taken cash advances, and even borrowed from his daughter's college funds. The successful businessman image was completely fabricated. Derek was drowning in debt, desperately trying to maintain appearances, while owing money to people who didn't accept late payments gracefully. "Your brother needs that inheritance to pay off loan sharks," Marcus concluded. "The family pressure campaign isn't about the girl's education or mortgage payments. Derek's in serious financial trouble, and he's using family guilt to manipulate you into saving him." That evening, Sarah called Derek's phone, but reached me instead when Derek gave her the wrong number in his panic. "Walter, thank God," Sarah said, clearly believing she was talking to Derek. Vincent called again. "He wants the $50,000 by Friday or he's coming to the house. The girls don't know anything, but I'm terrified. When are you getting that inheritance money?" I listened in stunned silence as Sarah revealed the truth Derek had hidden from everyone. He owed $50,000 to Vincent Torino specifically, plus additional amounts to other lenders. The total debt was over $150,000. "Sarah," I said quietly, "this is Walter." The phone went silent for 10 seconds before Sarah whispered, "Oh my God." "How long has Derek been gambling?" Sarah began crying genuine tears, not the performed emotion she'd displayed during family meetings. 3 years, maybe longer. I only found out 6 months ago when someone came to our house looking for money. Derek promised he'd quit, promised he'd get help. Does the family know about the gambling? Are you insane? If my parents knew Derek was mixed up with dangerous people, they'd lose their minds. Walter, please don't tell them. The girls can't know their father is in trouble. I understood the desperation now. Derek's manipulation campaign wasn't about greed or maintaining lifestyle. He was facing genuine danger from people who collected debts through violence. His family's safety was at risk. But that made his behavior even more despicable. Instead of confessing his mistakes and asking for help honestly, Derek had orchestrated an elaborate deception campaign. He'd lied about Margaret's mental state, manipulated the family into pressuring me, and created false narratives about financial struggle. "Sarah, Derek needs professional help and legal protection. Giving him inheritance money won't solve his gambling addiction. Walter, we just need enough to pay off these debts, then Derek will get treatment, I swear." That's what addicts always promise. The money will disappear and Derek will accumulate new debts within months. Sarah's desperation was heartbreaking, but I couldn't enable Derek's destruction of his family through gambling addiction. Margaret's inheritance wasn't meant to fund continued self-destructive behavior. Tuesday morning, I discovered Derek's most shocking betrayal. Emma had sent me what she thought was a supportive message, but she'd accidentally forwarded an email chain that revealed Derek's ultimate plan. Derek had forged Margaret's signature on a revised will, dated 1 week before her death. This fake document left everything to Derek and named Emma as a witness to Margaret's signature. They planned to present this forged will to probate court, claiming Margaret had reconsidered her decision during her final days. Emma's email to Derek read, "I'll testify that Margaret was lucid and deliberate when she signed the revision. I'll say she expressed regret about leaving Walter, everything worried he was too young and inexperienced to handle the responsibility." Derek's response, "Perfect. With your testimony and the medical records showing her dementia diagnosis, we can prove the original will was written during mental incompetence. Walter will lose everything, and the girls' futures will be secure." My family hadn't just been pressuring me to share the inheritance voluntarily. They'd been preparing to steal it through fraud and perjury if I refused their demands. I returned to Portland on Thursday with evidence and a plan. Marcus had helped me research Oregon inheritance law and connect with a criminal defense attorney who specialized in estate fraud cases. My family's behavior had crossed from manipulation into illegal territory. Attorney Rebecca Martinez reviewed the forged will Derek planned to submit and immediately identified multiple problems with his scheme. The signature was obviously fake, the date was incorrect for Margaret's whereabouts that day, and Emma's witness statement contained factual errors about Margaret's condition. "Your brother is looking at potential felony fraud charges," Attorney Martinez explained. "Forging estate documents carries serious penalties in Oregon. Add witness tampering and conspiracy charges for involving your ex-girlfriend, and Derek could face several years in prison." But I didn't want Derek imprisoned. Despite his betrayal, he was still my brother and the father of 2 innocent little girls. My goal was justice and protection, not revenge. "What leverage do I have to stop this without involving criminal prosecution?" I asked. Attorney Martinez smiled. "Complete leverage. We have evidence of his plan before he's executed it. We can prevent the fraud while protecting your inheritance through legal channels." I hired a private investigator to document Derek's gambling debts and connections to dangerous people. Within 2 days, we had photographs of Derek meeting with Vincent Torino, recorded conversations about repayment schedules, and financial records showing Derek's debts totaled over $150,000. The investigator also uncovered Derek's embezzlement from his own business. He'd been stealing from client construction deposits to pay gambling debts using money intended for materials and worker wages to cover his losses. 3 clients had unknowingly funded Derek's addiction while waiting for promised work to begin. This was the evidence I needed to neutralize Derek's threats while protecting his family from complete destruction. Derek had committed multiple crimes, but prosecution would destroy Sarah and the girls financially and emotionally. I called Derek on Saturday morning and requested a meeting at a neutral location. We met at a coffee shop downtown where Derek arrived looking exhausted and desperate. "Walter, I'm glad you're back. We need to discuss this inheritance situation reasonably." I placed a folder on the table between us. "Derek, we need to discuss your gambling debts and embezzlement charges." Derek's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I opened the folder and showed him photographs of his meetings with Vincent Torino, copies of his forged will, and bank records documenting his theft from client accounts. "You owe $157,000 to dangerous people," I said quietly. "You've stolen $75,000 from clients who trusted you with construction deposits. You forged Margaret's will and planned to use Emma's perjured testimony to steal my inheritance." Derek stared at the evidence in shock. "How did you get this?" "Professional investigators, Derek. The kind who work for attorneys and know how to gather evidence legally." Derek's hands shook as he realized the scope of his exposure. "Walter, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. These people will hurt my family if I don't pay them." "Then you should have asked for help honestly instead of lying and manipulating everyone." I was desperate. The debts kept growing, and I couldn't see any other option. I leaned forward, speaking firmly, but not unkindly. "Derek, you have 2 choices. Accept my help in solving this problem correctly, or face criminal prosecution for fraud and embezzlement." "What kind of help?" I outlined my proposal. Derek would confess his gambling addiction to his family and enter a treatment program immediately. He would make restitution to the clients he'd stolen from using funds I would provide. He would publicly acknowledge that Margaret's will was legitimate and that his pressure campaign was wrong. In exchange, I would not press criminal charges for the forged will or report his embezzlement to authorities. I would also provide enough money to pay off his gambling debts, but through a structured payment system that protected him from accumulating new obligations. "Your business will be placed in a trust managed by neutral parties," I explained. "You'll work under supervision until you've completed addiction treatment and made full restitution. Sarah and the girls will be protected financially, but you'll lose control of company assets until you prove you're trustworthy." Derek was silent for several minutes, processing the reality that his schemes had been discovered and defeated. "What about the family? They think you're the villain in this situation." "You're going to tell them the truth, Derek? All of it. The gambling, the debts, the lies about your financial situation, the attempted fraud. They need to understand what really happened here." Derek's pride struggled against his fear. He'd built his identity around being the successful brother, the responsible family man, the one who'd made smart choices. Confessing would destroy that image completely. "If I do what you're asking, everyone will know I'm a failure." "Derek, you're already a failure. The question is whether you want to be a failure who got help and made things right, or a failure who went to prison and destroyed his family completely." I gave Derek 24 hours to decide. If he agreed to my terms, we could begin solving his problems immediately. If he refused, I would report his crimes to authorities and let the legal system handle his situation. That evening, I received a text from Emma. "Derek told me you have evidence about our plans. Can we meet to discuss this?" I agreed to meet Emma at a restaurant near her apartment. She arrived looking nervous and defeated, clearly understanding that her role in Derek's fraud scheme had been exposed. "Walter, I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. Derek convinced me that Margaret was confused, that the inheritance was unfair to his daughters." "Emma, you agreed to commit perjury in court? You helped Derek forge legal documents. These aren't minor relationship issues. Emma began crying. I know it was wrong, but Derek was so desperate. He painted a picture of his family losing everything while you lived comfortably on money his daughters deserved. Did you know about Derek's gambling debts? Not until this week. Derek told me he had some financial problems, but nothing like what you've discovered. I showed Emma copies of the evidence against Derek and her. The documentation was overwhelming and would easily support criminal charges if I chose to pursue them. Derek manipulated you just like he manipulated the rest of the family. But your choices were your own. You decided to betray me, lie to me, and help steal my inheritance. Walter, please forgive me. I made terrible mistakes, but I love you. Emma, you don't love me. You love the idea of me, the stability I represent, the comfortable future you thought we might have. But you don't respect me enough to support my decisions or trust my judgment. Emma begged for reconciliation, promising to testify truthfully if Derek proceeded with his fraud scheme. But her willingness to switch sides based on who held more evidence proved she had no real principles or loyalty. Emma, we're finished. Don't contact me again, and don't involve yourself further in Derek's problems. Sunday evening, Derek called and agreed to my terms. He was ready to confess everything to the family and accept whatever consequences followed. Walter, I'm ashamed of what I've done to you and our family. You have every right to hate me. I don't hate you, Derek. I'm disappointed and hurt, but you're still my brother. What matters now is protecting your daughters and making things right. Monday morning, Derek gathered the entire family at his house for what he described as important news about the inheritance situation. I arrived to find Mom, Dad, Uncle Tom, and Sarah waiting in the living room, expecting Derek to announce my capitulation to their pressure. Instead, Derek confessed everything. The confession took 2 hours. Derek started with his gambling addiction, admitting he'd been betting on sports and playing poker with dangerous people for over 3 years. He'd hidden his losses from Sarah, borrowing money from increasingly risky sources to cover his debts. I owe $157,000 to loan sharks, Derek said, his voice shaking. People who don't care about family, people who collect debts through violence. I've been terrified they'd hurt Sarah and the girls. Sarah's face went through shock, horror, and heartbreak as she realized her marriage had been built on lies. The financial struggles Derek had described weren't about supporting their lifestyle. They were about funding his addiction. Derek continued with his embezzlement confession. He'd stolen $75,000 from client construction deposits using money intended for materials and wages to pay gambling debts. 3 families had trusted him with their savings for home improvements that would never be completed. Walter discovered my theft through financial records, Derek admitted. I betrayed my clients' trust and used their money to fuel my addiction. Uncle Tom was the first to explode. Derek, are you telling us you stole money from customers, from people who trusted you? I was desperate. The debts kept growing and I couldn't see any other way to pay them. Dad's military background had taught him to value honor and integrity above everything else. His son's admission of theft and deception violated every principle he'd tried to instill. Derek, you've disgraced this family and yourself. Those clients trusted you with their life savings. But Derek wasn't finished. He revealed the forged will, his plan to steal my inheritance through fraud and perjury. He showed them copies of the fake documents he'd created and Emma's agreement to lie under oath about Margaret's mental state. I convinced Emma that Margaret was confused when she wrote the will, Derek explained. I forged a revised version that left everything to me and planned to present it in court with Emma's false testimony. The room erupted. Mom screamed at Derek for involving an innocent young woman in his schemes. Dad accused him of destroying the family's reputation and honor. Uncle Tom demanded to know how Derek could contemplate stealing from his own brother. Sarah's reaction was the most devastating. She stood up slowly, her face pale with shock and betrayal. Derek, you let me pressure Walter for money to support our daughters, knowing the entire time that you'd stolen from families and planned to commit fraud. Sarah, I was desperate. You made me complicit in your lies. I guilt-tripped Walter for being selfish while you were planning to steal his inheritance. Sarah turned to me with tears streaming down her face. Walter, I am so sorry. I believed Derek's lies about our financial situation. I thought you were being cruel to your nieces. The family dynamics shifted completely as everyone processed Derek's betrayals. I wasn't the selfish brother refusing to help struggling family members. I was the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme, orchestrated by a gambling addict who'd manipulated everyone's emotions. Mom's apology was halting and shame-filled. Walter, we pressured you terribly based on Derek's lies. We thought you were being greedy, but Derek was manipulating all of us. Dad's military bearing crumbled as he realized he'd threatened to disown his innocent son while defending his guilty one. Walter, I said unforgivable things to you. I questioned your character when I should have questioned Derek's stories. Uncle Tom was perhaps most affected because his betrayal had been most personal. As Margaret's son, his testimony about her mental state had carried special weight in the family's pressure campaign. Walter, I lied about your grandmother's condition because Derek convinced me you'd manipulated her. Margaret was completely lucid until her final days. She made thoughtful, deliberate choices about her will. The revelation that Margaret had been mentally sharp made Derek's manipulation even more despicable. He hadn't just stolen from clients and planned inheritance fraud. He'd slandered our grandmother's memory to justify his schemes. But I wasn't interested in prolonging their shame or my vindication. The important work was protecting Derek's family and helping him recover from his addiction. Derek has agreed to enter gambling addiction treatment immediately, I announced. He'll make full restitution to the clients he stole from, and I'll provide funds to pay off his dangerous debts. But there are conditions. I outlined the rehabilitation plan Derek had accepted. His business would be managed by a neutral trustee until he completed treatment and proved his reliability. All financial decisions would require approval from the trustee and a family committee. Derek would work under supervision while earning back the trust he'd destroyed. Sarah and the girls will be protected financially, I continued. Their house, the girls' education, basic living expenses will all be covered, but luxury spending and business expansion are suspended until Derek demonstrates sustained recovery. Sarah was crying again, but these were tears of relief rather than manipulation. Walter, after everything Derek put you through, why are you helping us? Because those little girls are my nieces and they don't deserve to suffer for their father's mistakes. Because Margaret's money should protect family, not destroy it. And because Derek is sick, not evil. Addiction is a disease that can be treated. Derek's breakdown was complete. The successful businessman facade crumbled as he sobbed with shame and gratitude. Walter, I don't deserve your help or forgiveness. I destroyed your relationship with Emma, turned the family against you, and planned to steal your inheritance. Derek, you need treatment and time to make amends. What matters now is protecting your daughters and rebuilding trust with your wife. The family spent the next 3 hours processing the reality of Derek's betrayals and my generosity. Conversations were painful but necessary, as everyone acknowledged their role in the pressure campaign that had nearly destroyed our relationships. Dad's military discipline helped him process his mistakes analytically. Walter, I failed as a father by not investigating Derek's claims thoroughly. I let emotion override judgment and treated you unfairly. Mom's guilt was overwhelming. Walter, I said terrible things to you based on Derek's lies. I threatened to disown you for protecting yourself from fraud. Uncle Tom's shame was deepest because he'd lied about Margaret's mental state. Walter, I slandered my own mother's memory to support Derek's manipulation. Margaret would be ashamed of me. But the most important conversation was between Derek and Sarah. She needed to understand the full scope of his deception and decide whether their marriage could survive his betrayals. Derek, you let me emotionally abuse your brother while planning to commit felony fraud, Sarah said. You used our daughters as leverage in your manipulation campaign. You stole from clients who trusted us. Sarah, I was drowning in debt and couldn't see any other option. I was afraid the loan sharks would hurt you and the girls. Then you should have confessed and asked for help honestly. Instead, you made me complicit in trying to steal from Walter. Their marriage would require extensive counseling, but Sarah's decision to stay and fight for their family provided hope for Derek's recovery. The evening concluded with Derek's public acknowledgement that Margaret's will was legitimate and reflected her thoughtful judgment. He admitted that his pressure campaign had been based on lies and manipulation, rather than genuine family need. Margaret knew both of us for our entire lives, Derek said. She chose Walter because she trusted his character and judgment. Her decision was wise and deliberate. 3 days later, Attorney Martinez presented the sealed letter Margaret had left with her will. She'd instructed that it be opened only if Derek challenged her decision in court. The letter was devastating in its accuracy and foresight. If Derek is reading this, it means he has challenged my will, despite my explicit wishes. I am not surprised. Derek has shown concerning patterns of selfishness and poor judgment throughout his adult life. His spending habits are reckless, his priorities are misplaced, and his character lacks the integrity now necessary to manage substantial assets responsibly. I have watched Derek manipulate family situations to his advantage for years. He presents himself as a victim when facing consequences for his choices, and he uses emotional manipulation to gain sympathy and support. These behaviors indicate that Derek would waste my inheritance on immediate gratification rather than long-term stability. Walter has demonstrated consistent character integrity and responsibility throughout his life. He visits regularly, listens to family stories, helps with practical needs, and shows genuine care for others. Walter's modest lifestyle reflects thoughtful priorities, not lack of ambition. His teaching career serves his community and demonstrates commitment to values beyond financial gain. I am leaving my estate to Walter because I trust him to honor my memory and use these assets wisely. If Derek contests this, it will prove that my assessment of his character was accurate. Margaret's letter vindicated my inheritance completely while revealing her extraordinary understanding of family dynamics. She'd anticipated Derek's reaction and left evidence proving her mental clarity and deliberate judgment. 6 months later, my life has found balance I never expected. Derek completed his gambling addiction treatment program at a residential facility in Colorado, participating in intensive therapy and support groups. His recovery has been genuine and sustained, marked by daily commitment to sobriety and weekly family counseling sessions. Sarah chose to reconcile with Derek after seeing his dedication to change. Their marriage required extensive rebuilding, but Derek's honesty about his addiction and willingness to accept oversight has gradually restored Sarah's trust. The girls Emma and Sophie, now 9 years old, understand that Daddy was sick but is getting better through hard work and family support. Derek's construction business has been restructured under the trustee arrangement I established. All client accounts are managed independently, preventing future embezzlement opportunities. Derek works as a supervised employee rather than owner, earning salary rather than controlling company finances. His clients have been fully compensated for the funds he stole, allowing several delayed projects to be completed successfully. The dangerous gambling debts have been eliminated through the structured payment plan I funded. Vincent Torino and other loan sharks received full payment plus interest, removing threats to Derek's family. Derek no longer has access to credit cards, business accounts, or large amounts of cash, protecting him from relapse temptations. I purchased a modest 3-bedroom house in Southeast Portland with Margaret's inheritance, choosing a neighborhood known for strong community connections and excellent schools. The house has a workshop in the basement where I practice the woodworking skills Margaret taught me, creating furniture pieces that honor her memory and connect me to family traditions. My promotion to department head at Lincoln High School came through naturally after I gained financial stability. Without student loan payments and housing stress, I've been able to focus completely on teaching and educational leadership. The inheritance provided security that enhanced my career rather than replacing it. My relationship with Janet began 4 months ago when she joined the history department as a new teacher. She's intelligent, independent, and shares my values about education and community service. Janet knows about the family crisis and inheritance situation, but she respects my decisions and doesn't try to manage my relationships or finances. Margaret's house has been converted into a scholarship fund that provides educational support for students facing financial hardship. The fund covers tuition, books, and living expenses for young people pursuing teaching degrees or community service careers. This use of Margaret's property honors her belief in education and character development. Derek's relationship with his daughters has actually strengthened through his recovery process. The girls understand that Daddy made mistakes but is working hard to fix them. Emma and Sophie spend alternate weekends with me, learning about their great-grandmother Margaret through stories and woodworking projects. These visits have created strong bonds between uncle and nieces without replacing their relationship with Derek. The family dinners that resumed 2 months ago are different from our pre-crisis gatherings. Conversations are more honest and thoughtful, with everyone understanding how quickly trust can be destroyed and how much effort rebuilding requires. Derek shares updates from his treatment program, Sarah discusses their marriage counseling progress, and the girls show off school projects and athletic achievements. Uncle Tom has established his own gambling addiction support group after recognizing his role in enabling Derek's problems. His guilt about lying regarding Margaret's mental state motivated him to seek therapy and make amends to family members he deceived. Uncle Tom's recovery has been less structured than Derek's, but equally committed and successful. Mom and Dad have participated in family therapy sessions addressing their role in the pressure campaign that nearly destroyed our relationships. Dad's military background helped him accept responsibility for his mistakes analytically, while Mom's emotional nature required more time to process her guilt and shame. Both parents now understand how Derek manipulated their love for the grandchildren to support his fraud schemes. Emma attempted reconciliation twice, reaching out through mutual friends and social media. Her messages emphasized her regret and desire to rebuild our relationship. But I've maintained complete separation, understanding that Emma's choices revealed character defects that wouldn't change through simple apology. She chose to betray my trust for Derek's family approval, demonstrating values incompatible with long-term partnership. The legal protections I established have prevented any future challenges to Margaret's will. The inheritance has been diversified through investments and trusts that generate steady income while preserving principal. Attorney Martinez continues to monitor the situation, ensuring Derek cannot access or manipulate the funds supporting his family's stability. Derek's public acknowledgement of his manipulation campaign has restored my reputation within the extended family and community. Friends who'd heard distorted versions of the inheritance conflict now understand that I was the victim rather than the villain. This vindication matters less than I expected, but it has allowed me to rebuild social relationships without carrying stigma from Derek's lies. The workshop I've created in my basement has become a place of meditation and memory, where I practice woodworking techniques Margaret taught me while reflecting on the lessons learned through our family crisis. The furniture I create honors her memory while developing skills that connect me to family traditions, spanning generations. My teaching has been enriched by the personal growth that came through defending my principles against family pressure. Students respond to authenticity and moral clarity, sensing that their teacher has faced real challenges and emerged stronger. The inheritance provided financial security, but the character testing provided wisdom that enhances every aspect of my life. Derek's recovery has created opportunities for genuine brotherhood that didn't exist before his confession. Our relationship now is based on honesty about his addiction and my boundaries, rather than the superficial family dynamics that enabled his manipulation. Derek respects my decisions and doesn't ask for privileges or special treatment. The girls' education fund I established ensures Emma and Sophie will have college opportunities regardless of their parents' financial circumstances. This fund operates independently from Derek's recovery progress, protecting the children from any potential relapse consequences. Margaret would approve of investing in education that develops character alongside academic achievement. Sarah's personal growth through marriage counseling and addiction education has transformed her from enabler to advocate. She now recognizes manipulation tactics and maintains healthy boundaries while supporting Derek's recovery. Sarah's strength has inspired other family members to seek their own therapeutic support for relationship problems. The Christmas celebration this year included everyone: Derek and his family, Mom and Dad, Uncle Tom, and my girlfriend Janet. The gathering was smaller than past holidays, but richer in genuine connection and mutual respect. Derek shared gratitude for family support during his recovery, while the girls performed holiday songs they'd learned at school. Margaret's memory permeates every positive change that has emerged from this crisis. Her wisdom in choosing me as heir wasn't about favoritism or financial judgment. It was about recognizing character traits necessary for protecting family legacy. The inheritance has funded Derek's recovery, protected his children's futures, supported education initiatives, and strengthened family relationships. The life lesson that has emerged from this experience centers on the importance of standing firm on principles, even when facing enormous pressure to compromise. Integrity cannot be negotiated away for peace or convenience. When family relationships are built on manipulation rather than genuine love, temporary conflict is necessary to create foundation for authentic connection. Derek's addiction taught our family that enabling destructive behavior through misplaced loyalty causes more harm than honest confrontation. My willingness to face family rejection rather than fund his gambling created the crisis that forced Derek to seek treatment. Sometimes the most loving response to self-destructive behavior is refusing to make it easier to continue. Margaret's foresight in anticipating family dynamics and preparing for Derek's reaction has given me deep respect for elderly wisdom that sees patterns and motivations younger people miss. Her decision to leave detailed explanations and legal protection showed sophisticated understanding of human nature and family psychology. The relationship between money and character has been clarified through this experience. Money reveals existing character rather than creating it. Derek's gambling addiction and willingness to steal existed before his debts became overwhelming. My family's willingness to pressure and manipulate existed before significant money was involved. Margaret's generosity and my integrity existed independent of inheritance amounts. Recovery and redemption are possible when people accept responsibility for their mistakes and commit to sustained change. Derek's transformation from manipulative addict to honest family man required acknowledgement of harm he'd caused and dedication to different choices. Family forgiveness required genuine repentance and behavioral change rather than empty promises. The most profound realization has been understanding that family love must include accountability. True compassion sometimes requires allowing people to face consequences for their choices rather than rescuing them from discomfort. Enabling dysfunction through misplaced kindness perpetuates problems rather than solving them. Margaret's inheritance has become a tool for healing and growth rather than division and greed. The money has funded addiction recovery, family therapy, educational opportunities, and community service. Most importantly, it has restored authentic relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. As I write this final reflection, Derek is celebrating 1 year of gambling sobriety. His daughters are thriving academically and socially. Sarah has developed independent strength and clear boundaries. My parents have learned to support without enabling. Uncle Tom has found peace through making amends. My own life has been enriched beyond the financial inheritance, teaching with passion and purpose. building relationship with Janet based on shared values, creating family connections rooted in honesty, and honoring Margaret's memory through service to others have provided fulfillment that money alone could never achieve. Have you ever had to choose between family pressure and personal principles? How did you handle the conflict between keeping peace and maintaining your integrity? Your experiences and perspectives could help others facing similar challenges. Thank you for joining me on this journey through family crisis and recovery. I hope this story encourages you to stand firm on your values while remaining open to forgiveness and redemption. Remember that true family relationships are built on character and love, not manipulation and convenience. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more real-life experiences, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter.